Hey guys, it's Hunter here. Alright, and now here I am with another retro wrestling review. And yeah, for this one, I thought I would do something interesting for this retro review. For this review, this is going to be a review for WCW Greed 2001. So, yeah, what's so interesting about this is that as I'm sure a lot of you know, this was actually WCW's final pay-per-view ever. Yeah, this was just like a week before the WWF bought them out. So this was the very last WCW pay-per-view ever. And yeah, and I figured I would review this because the show actually did take place like 20 years ago today. So yeah, I figured it'd be fitting to really talk about this show in honor of like the 20th anniversary of celebrating WCW's final pay-per-view. And yeah, and this is also probably the last wrestling show that I will actually end up watching on the WWE Network because yeah, today is like when the WWE Network is moving over to Peacock, and yeah, and I got an email earlier today saying that like my WWE Network subscription ends up like expiring today and it's not going to renew. So yeah, so turns out I guess like after today, like the network is like just shutting down, or well, I don't know if it's like fully shutting down, but I think like just after like this month's subscription, like when it's time for when the subscription for everyone like expires this month, like that's when like they're it'll absolutely like just run out, and then like all they'll have to watch everything from the network on Peacock now. So this is probably the last show that I will end up watching on the WWE Network. Yeah. So as far as this show goes, this show actually was it was a pretty solid show overall. Yeah. I've watched Lundrick's review, who's of the three WCW pay-per-views from 2001. There was Sin, Super Brawl Revenge, I think it was called, and this one, Greed. Yeah. And he says that like in like 2001, like for like the few months that WCW was still in business in 2001, they seem to be showing like some signs of improvement after just like their really awful run in through like 1999 and especially 2000. Yeah, it's just after as awful and horrible as those 2 years were, yeah, WCW seemed to like really like start to really redeem themselves and really improve their product in 2001 for the few months that they were still around. And yeah, and yeah, I haven't actually watched like the other two pay-per-views from 2001, but yeah, with this one, it really does seem like WCW really was like really just really improving the product. But yeah, it was just like at this point, like it was just yeah, it was just like too little, too late for them to really like make any comeback because yeah, after just like how horrible 1999 and 2000 were, there was just like no coming back after that. Yeah, WCW was pretty much just doomed by this point, regardless of like how good that they were or gonna be. Yeah, but yeah, overall, just yeah, the show overall, like I said, it was overall pretty solid. I really can't think of like anything on the show that really was like. Well, I can't really think of much. Like there was like crap on the show, but I can't really think of like all that much from the show. It really was that awful. Like the majority of the show was still at least solid. Like yeah, there was just just a lot of there were like a lot of like matches that were at least decent on here. Like there's probably just like one or two matches that really didn't turn out that good. I mean, there were like quite a few mediocre matches on the show, but they weren't absolutely horrible. Well, yeah, and the show also did like have like a lot of like well, it did have like some matches that were like really good to great. So yeah, so the show overall, yeah, it's pretty solid, and I really do think that like this was probably like the best WCW pay per view in like such a long time. Like yeah, just like if you've seen like the WCW shows like in 1999 and especially 2000, like I've even talked about a few WCW events from 2000. Yeah, just yeah, when you see just like how bad they are, like this is probably like the best WCW show in like at least like 2 to 3 years. So yeah, so it does at least have the distinction of like still like with this being WCW's pay per view, at least the WCW really did like try to go out with a bang with their pay per views, and they did like give us this pay per view that really was probably like their best pay per view event in quite a while. So yeah, so it does at least have that distinction. So yeah. So yeah, if you really just do want to see like something that really will just like really does give you like a huge fresh breath after just the horrible run WCW had in 1999 and 2000, yeah, and even like just for like historical reasons, just like with this being the final WCW pay per view, yeah, I really would like do think that this show is worth a watch. Like just like for the historical reasons, with it being WWE's final pay per view, and just with it just being so much better than like so many of the pay per views in the last 2 to 3 years prior to this one. Yeah, yeah. So overall, I do think it is a solid show. And yeah, and maybe it's just like when you compare it to like especially all the pay per views in 2000 with like how horrible WCW was in 2000. Yeah, it really just like probably just make the show really just look that much better. Yeah. All right. So yeah. So let me just go over the card on the show. All right. So yeah, the show opened up with Kwee versus Jason Jett, and yeah, this was a pretty good opener. Yeah, just what the hell was with Kwee's hair? Like, why did it look like he was just electrocuted, like with his hair standing up like that? Yeah, but yeah, this match overall, yeah, it was a pretty good opener. Yeah, it really did go back and forth between the two of them. Yeah. There was one part in the match where uh Jason Jett was like on the outside of the ring, and Kwee with him like tried to dive through the ropes to Jason Jett, but Jason Jett moved out of the way. But yeah, it really just seemed like Kwee dove through the ropes just like way after Jason Jett moved. Yeah. Yeah, and there were like some other spots throughout the match. Like, yeah, it just really did kind of go like back and forth between the two of them. And in the end, Jason Jett ended up getting the win. So yeah, it was a pretty solid back and forth match. Like it was entertaining, and there was a lot of good wrestling done in the match. So yeah, so overall, it was a pretty solid opener. So I'd probably give that probably around like a 3.25. Yeah, and then next up, oh man, next up, then we had what WCW really like they just like started up like during this time, but yeah, of course, like with the company going out of business, so just a week later, it didn't go anywhere at all. Next up was WCW had like when they introduced the Cruiserweight Tag Team Championships. Yeah, and here like they had. Yeah, and in the weeks leading up to this, they had a tournament to crown those champions. Yeah, and here we had the tournament final. It was Elix Skipper and Kid Romeo versus Rey Mysterio and Billy Kidman. Yeah, so what can I say? I mean, I've already talked like so much about like how the cruiserweight division was really like one of the best things about WCW, and yeah, and I've just talked about like just several cruiserweight matches. This is when I've talked about other WCW shows, and yeah, this match was no exception. Yeah, this was just like once again like such an awesome match. I mean, yeah, it was just like went back and forth between both teams. There was a lot of near falls. I mean, there were like quite a lot of like nice spots in the match. Like there was like a point in the match where like they were like fighting like up the aisleway on the staging area, and yeah, but um uh Elix and Kid Romeo were like off onto the floor horror off of the staging area, and then both Rey Mysterio and Billy Kidman dove down from the staging and right onto the two of them. So yeah, that was an awesome spot. Yeah, and then we just like had just like so many like moments throughout the match, like especially from like Rey Mysterio and Billy Kidman. Like there was at one point where like Rey Mysterio was tagged in the match, and as Billy Kidman had one of the guys, I forgot which one it was. Yeah, Rey Mysterio then did that thing where he like does the drop kick from the turnbuckle onto the guy on the ropes. yeah, and it just like was such an awesome match. Like there were a lot of like high flying spots. There were like a bunch of near falls. Like both teams like ended up like breaking a bunch of pin attempts throughout the match. Yeah, which is such an awesome match. And yeah, like I've said before, like during like these last few years of WCW, like it really seemed like at this time, like the cruiserweight division really was just like the shining star of WCW, because yeah, it seemed like the cruiserweights at this time was like this was like one of the best periods ever for the cruiserweights. Like they had like just great matches, as I've said before. Like when I talked about a Starrcade 2000 several years ago, yeah, that was just like such a great match when Starrcade it was just like such an awful show. And yeah, and just yeah, throughout the years of these like last few years of WCW, just it was like loaded with a bunch of like awesome cruiserweight matches. So yeah, this was just a really great match, and I really, yeah, and this really does kind of like make me wish that WCW kind of like would have lasted like longer than just a week after this, because I really would have liked to see like how this cruiserweight tag team division really would work out, and I really feel like this is like something that did kind of influence the WWE to make the women's tag team championships that they have now. Yeah, so yeah, so WCW really just like wanted to try like something different, like give it like the cruiserweights their own tag team division. It just sucks that like just they didn't really have any time to establish it at all. Yeah, but yeah, this was like a really awesome match. Like just a lot of like high flying spots, a bunch of near falls. Yeah, just like a bunch of awesome stuff. And then yeah, yeah, and it really did make you think a lot of times that the match really was going to end, and when like both teams like had pin attempts. Yeah, but in the end, yeah, after like Rey Mysterio like was attempting like some sort of move, I forgot what it was, but yeah, yeah, he got like dropped on his head or something, and then yeah, he just like ended up getting knocked out, and Elix Skipper and Kid Romeo ended up winning the match, and yeah, they became the cruiserweight tag team champions. Yeah, yeah, but of course, like on the very last episode of Nitro, a week later, like Rey Mysterio and Billy Kidman did win the Cruiserweight Tag Team Championship belts, and then yeah, and after like WCW closed down, like Rey Mysterio and Billy Kidman actually got to keep those championship belts. Yeah, like Rey Mysterio like showed that in his 619 DVD. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, but yeah, this match was a pretty awesome match, and yeah, this was definitely the match of the night, and just another example of just like how awesome the cruiserweight division really was, especially at this time. So yeah, so I give that 4.25. Just awesome match. Yeah. Then next up, this is kind of like where the show does kind of dip in quality. Next up, then we had Shawn Stasiak versus Bam Bam Bigelow, and yeah, this wasn't good. Yeah, I mean it was only like 6 minutes long. Yeah, it was basically just like a Shawn Stasiak really was just trying to uh, uh, just fight Bam Bam Bigelow with a bunch of cheap moves, and then when Bam Bam Bigelow started to gain the upper hand, like Shawn Stasiak would like just like try to run off to like just like get Bam Bam Bigelow off guard, and then try to go at him again. Yeah, and you had like Stacy Keibler out at ringside with Shawn Stasiak. And then yeah, and throughout the match, like she was just like trying to distract the referee, and Bam Bam Bigelow had points throughout the match. Yeah, and then at the end of the match, when Bam Bam Bigelow like looked like he was gonna get the really like get an opportunity to win, like Cece Keibler got on the ring apron and was just like distracting Bam Bam Bigelow, and she took her hair tie out. But then, as like the referee was trying to get her out, like she ended up like slipping some sort of spray to Shawn Stasiak. Not sure if it was like hairspray or something else, but yeah. Yeah, but yeah, Shawn Stasiak ended up spraying it in Bam Bam Bigelow's face, and then yeah, then that allowed Shawn Stasiak to get the pin and win the match. So yeah, so it really was not a good match. I would probably give that like a star and a half. Yeah. Then next up, then we had uh, Team Canada, which was Lance Storm and Mike Awesome versus Hugh Morrus and Konnan. And uh, this match was just kind of there. I mean, it wasn't good. It wasn't awful. It was just kind of a substandard match. Yeah, it was just kind of like back and forth. I don't really remember much from this match. Yeah, it was just kind of like the two teams going back and forth and stuff, and then yeah, and just yeah, um, Lane Storm and Mike Awesome ended up getting the win. So yeah, it really was not a memorable match, and I really don't remember much from it. So yeah, so I really can't talk too much about it. But yeah, really wasn't like horrible or anything. It was just like kind of just a substandard match. So I'd probably give that like 2 stars. Yeah. Yeah. Then next up is when the show really does get back on track. Next up we get another cruiserweight gem. Next up we had the Cruiserweight Championship on the line with Chavo Guerrero defending against Shane Helms. And yeah, this was another awesome match. Like, just another example of just like how awesome the Cruiserweight division really was at the time. I mean, this was just like such an awesome match here. Yeah, you just like had just once again just awesome cruiserweight action between these two guys. Yeah, there was like a lot of near falls in the match. Yeah, it was just like a really just awesome match right here. Yeah, this match just like went back and forth. Like it spilled to the outside of the ring. Like there was a lot of like different moves used in the match. Yeah, they used like some real interesting creative moves for this match. Yeah, I mean, yeah, this match just like yeah, this was just like really awesome and entertaining to watch. Yeah, towards the end of WCW's run, this is like when uh, Shane Helms was really like getting like a really good push in the cruiserweight division, which I guess is like one of the reasons why like when he came to the WWF as the Hurricane, they really did like really uh, gave him kind of like a relatively decent push. Like they gave him like the cruiserweight title, and yeah, he was like quite a fan favorite. So yeah, so it is good that at least WWE really did try at least to really just make him like probably as good as they probably could with the Hurricane gimmick. Yeah, and it was just a really awesome match. There was a lot of like high flying spots in the match, like there was a point in the match where like Chavo was on the outside and Shane Helms like dove down to the floor onto Chavo. Yeah, and it was a nice ending where Shane Helms like had Chavo in his finisher. I forgot what it was called, but yeah, it was like where like he like had Chavo like racked up like upside down on his back and then just dropped down, and yeah, Chavo's like then just like was down and out, and then Shane Helms ended up getting the win, and Shane Helms won the cruiserweight title. So yeah, so once again, just an awesome match, and the cruiserweights really did like steal the show on this event. So yeah, that was a great match as well. I give that 4 stars. Yeah. Then next up, then we kind of just like had a squash match where the WCW Tag Team titles were on the line. It was Chuck Palumbo and Sean O'Haire defending against Totally Buff, which was Lex Luger and Buff Bagwell. Yeah, and this match only lasted like a minute. Yeah, it was just Sean O'Haire and Chuck Palumbo came in, and yeah, they just beat down Lex Luger and Buff Bagwell, and then and then after like Buff Bagwell tried to hold Sean O'Haire for Lex Luger to attack, Sean O'Haire ducked and Buff Bagwell got hit, and then Chuck Palumbo and Sean O'Haire then like got jungle kicks on Buff Bagwell and Lex Luger, and then Sean O'Haire then hit Shanton bombs on both of them, and then both Sean O'Haire and Chuck Palumbo pinned both guys. So yeah, they won the match in just a minute. So yeah, so I'm not gonna rate that. Yeah, but yeah, it was like just a squash match. But yeah, I mean, I'm not really gonna complain much because I mean, what's really the point of it? To be honest, I mean, it did at least make O'Hare and Palumbo really look good and strong. So yeah, all right. And then next up, then we had Kanyon versus the Cat, aka like Ernest Miller. Yeah, and then and yeah, and this overall like was pretty solid as well. Hell yeah, I mean yeah, yeah. I mean it was just once again kind of like a back and forth match between the two of them. I mean it wasn't like anything like that memorable about it, but it was at least interesting. Yeah, I mean it was like solid back and forth action between the two. Yeah, it just kind of like go back and forth, and then yeah, and then towards like the end of the match, like Kenyon then ended up like hitting the referee with the cast that he had in his hand, and then he hit the cat with it, and then and like Kenyon then like just was like trying to go after Miss Jones, who was in the cat's corner. Yeah. Yeah, but then yeah, then as like Kanyon was busy with Mr. Jones, then that allowed the cat then to attack Kanyon, and then yeah, then Mr. Jones then nailed Kanyon, and then yeah, then yeah, Ernest Miller was then able to and get the pin onto Kanyon. So yeah, so the cat won the match. So yeah, so it was at least a solid match. Actually, yeah, it wasn't like anything that great, but it wasn't in anything horrible, and it was at least interesting. So yeah, so I give that probably like around 3 stars. Yeah. Then next up, then we had the United States Championship on the line. It was Rick Steiner defending against Booker T. So yeah, so it's kind of the odd to see Rick Steiner wrestling without his headgear. Like that was really like one of Rick Steiner's trademarks was that he had the headgear for all those years. So yeah, so it's kind of odd seeing him wrestling without it. Yeah, but yeah, this match was just kind of like mediocre. I mean, it really wasn't really like all that good. Yeah. Plus, it really didn't last that long either. This match only lasted like about 7.5 minutes. Yeah. 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 Both guys like it was just like kind of just like average brawling between the two of them. Like they started fighting like outside of the ring, and yeah, Rick Steiner then was like starting to beat down Booker T, like hit like a Steiner line and a double hook powerbomb onto Booker T. Yeah, and then yeah, then throughout the match, like Rick Steiner was just like using like various rest holds on Booker T. Yeah, and eventually Booker T started to gain the upper hand. And but then yeah, the referee accidentally got hit with a Harlem sidekick after Rick Steiner moved out of the way. And yeah, and then yeah. Yeah, but then yeah, then as Rick Steiner was starting to gain the upper hand, then Shane Douglas came through the crowd, and then yeah, then he nailed Rick Steiner in the back of the head with the cast that he had on his hand, and then that allowed Booker T to hit the bookend onto Rick Steiner, and yeah, then Booker T was able to get the pin, and yeah, Booker T ended up winning the United States Championship. So yeah, so this match overall, yeah, it was just a pretty mediocre match, honestly. I really feel like both guys could have like done a lot better here. So yeah, so that match I probably give like 2 stars. Yeah. And then next up, then we had Ric Flair and Jeff Jarrett versus Dusty and Dustin Rhodes. Yeah. So yeah, so I thought it was pretty interesting seeing Dusty and Dustin Rhodes like teaming up together in a match. Like yeah, I just really found that really interesting to see the two of them teaming up together. Yeah, yeah, it was nice to really like see like the two of them really like involved in something together like this. Yeah, because in the WWE, I really don't remember any time where Dusty Rhodes really interacted with Goldust at all. I mean, he interacted with Cody Rhodes, but yeah, I really don't remember really any interaction on screen at any time in the WWE between Dusty Rhodes and Goldust. So yeah, it was nice to really see an interaction between the two of them in the same match here. Yeah, and this overall was a decent match. I mean, yeah, given like a Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes' ages at the time, sorry. Yeah, given their ages at the time, I think that they did pretty well in the match. Yeah, it was just kind of like a back and forth match, like Ric Flair and Jeff Jarrett were kind of like just using some dirty tactics throughout the match. Yeah, they were like really targeting Dustin's knee in the match. Yeah, and even like Dustin like really like had even like suffered some knee damage here. Like you could see like he like was like struggling to stand up at times during the match. Yeah. So yeah, for a portion of the match, like just Ric Flair and Jeff Jarrett were just beating down Dustin, but then eventually Dusty ended up getting tagged in, and then yeah, Dusty then went at it with like Jeff Jarrett and Ric Flair. Yeah, and then as a Ric Flair and Jeff Jarrett were then like trying to double team Dusty. Dusty was able to like fight the two of them off, and then made a blind tag to Dustin. Then as like the two of them were beating down Ric Flair and Jeff Jarrett. Then eventually Dustin was able to roll up Ric Flair and get the pin. So yeah, so then Dusty and Dustin Rhodes ended up getting the win. Yeah, and then after the match, like I guess the stipulation for the match was like the losers had to kiss the winners' asses. Yeah, and then yeah, Ric Flair like was attempting to run away, but then as Dustin was holding Jeff Jarrett in the corner. Then Dusty dropped his pants and put his ass in Jeff Jarrett's face. So yeah, so I guess this match like it served its purpose, and yeah, and it was a decent match overall. I would probably give that like around 2.5 stars. Yeah. And then we got the main event, the WCW Championship on the line in a Falls Count Anywhere match with Scott Steiner defending against DDP. So yeah, this was a pretty good match right here. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I said before, like, I really do hate Scott Steiner. I just really have really hated this guy. I don't enjoy his matches. He just really doesn't have talent in the ring. So yeah, so I really just hate Scott Steiner. But yeah, even I have to admit, this was a pretty good match right here, and probably one of his better matches. Like when Scott Steiner was like facing the right kind of person, he could have a pretty good match with that person. Like he had some good matches with like guys like Booker T during this time. So yeah. So when Scott Steiner is like facing the right guy, he can have a pretty good match with the guy. Yeah, and this is one of those cases. Yeah, this was overall like a pretty good match. Like they were like fighting like around like the outside of the ring a lot during the match. Like there was a part in this match when they were like fighting through the crowd, and Scott Steiner took like this guy's crutch and started to like go at DDP with it, and then yeah, the guy then threw his other crutch to DDP, and DDP then nailed Scott Steiner with the crutch. Yeah. Then there was a point in the match when like Scott Steiner took like something from a fan, and yeah, and that fan that he took the object from, that was actually Paul London. So yeah, so Paul London was in the crowd for the show. So that was kind of interesting. Yeah, as soon as like I saw him, I immediately recognized it was Paul London. Yeah. Yeah. And the funny thing is, Paul London also ended up like making an appearance the next year here in the WWF, like during like that episode of SmackDown, like leading up to WrestleMania 18. I think it was like 10 days before WrestleMania 18 when Ric Flair was like going after the Undertaker and exploding the crowd. Like Undertaker moved out of the way from a punch of Ric Flair. Ric Flair ended up like hitting that fan, and that fan was Paul London as well. So yeah, so kind of interesting seeing like Paul London like be like extras in the crowd. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, this was a pretty good back and forth match between the two guys. Yeah, yeah. It just kind of like did go back and forth. Like there was a point in the match where like Scott Steiner like attempted a belly to belly suplex, but DDP countered it into a DDT. Yeah, and then yeah, DDP like hit a couple of diamond cutters on Scott Steiner in the match. Yeah. Then at one point where it looked like a DDP had the match won, Rick Steiner ended up getting involved and like taking out the referee. Like he pulled the referee out of the ring. But then yeah, then DDP then just like dove down onto Rick Steiner and got the referee back into the ring. Yeah. And then yeah, then as like what's her name? Mid Midija, is that how it said? Yeah. Who was at ringside? Scott Steiner. Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing her name wrong, but yeah, as she was like distracting the referee, and then Scott Steiner, or well, yeah, Rick Steiner ended up like slipping like something into the ring, I think, or yeah, as a yeah, yeah, slipped like a pipe into the ring or something. Yeah, then yeah, as uh like a the referee was distracted. Then Scott Steiner, after like a DDP, was able to like get to the ropes after a Steiner recliner. Then yeah, Scott Steiner ended up just grabbing the pipe and just nailed DDP several times with the pipe right in the ribs. Yeah. And then yeah, then Scott Steiner got another Steiner recliner on DDP, and at that point DDP was just like absolutely passed out. So yeah, then the referee ended up just like calling for the bell. So yeah, so Scott Steiner ended up retaining the WCW Championship here. Yeah. So overall, it was a pretty good match. So I'd probably give that like around 3.5 stars. Yeah. So overall with the show, I would probably give it probably like around a 7 out of 10. Yeah. So it was a pretty it was a pretty solid show, as I said. I mean, yeah, there were some matches that really weren't that good, like of course, like Shawn Stasiak versus Bam Bigelow, and yeah, the Team Canada versus Konnan and Hugh Morrus match wasn't all that great, and Booker T versus Rick Steiner was pretty mediocre. But yeah, there was still like stuff on here like the opener, the 2 cruiserweight matches, the main event. Yeah, and so the majority of the show was at least decent. So really just while there was some crap on the show, I really can't find like too much to complain about for the show that to say that it really wasn't all that good. It was overall a pretty solid show. So like I said, this is probably was probably the best WCW show in quite a long time up to that point. Like I said, probably the best in at least the last 2 to 3 years up to that point. So overall, I would say like due to that and just the fact that it really does have the historical value of being the final WCW pay-per-view, I would say it is at least worth a watch. So if you haven't seen it, and if you're curious just to see like a really huge fresh breath after just like how horrible the WCW was in the prior 2 years, yeah, this is definitely something that you will get that from. So overall, WCW did like WCW really did go out on a pretty good note with their pay-per-views with this show. Yeah, but yeah, and like I said, just 8 days after this pay-per-view is when like WCW went out of business. Yeah. So overall, a pretty good, or just at least a pretty solid show. And yeah, just like I said, just given like how bad they were the previous 2 years, that probably just does make the show look probably even like better than what it really is. Yeah, I'm sorry about the coughing. Yeah. So just check it out and yeah, draw your own conclusion to it. All right. Yeah. So I guess that's all I can really say about it. All right. So this is it from my review of WCW Sin 2001. So I hope you guys did enjoy this review. And up next, like I've just talked about WCW show. Up next in my next video, I'm going to be talking about kind of like another like subject that is like sort of WCW related as well. So I'm going to make a video about like that subject up next. So stay tuned for that coming up next. But I hope you guys enjoy this review. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.